Welcome to the Lila Life Show. I am your host, Linda Andrews, and I feel blessed to be with you right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Your listening keeps me coming back. So keep listening, keep sharing. I appreciate it. And just shout out to the regular listeners who are here every week or regularly. I really appreciate you following along for the journey and the evolution of the show. We're going to be starting back up with some more guest interviews over the next couple weeks and months. So I'm excited about that. If you have any guests that you would love to have on the show or hear a conversation with, we always love those recommendations. You can email team@lilalife.co. Shout out to Rachel, who is a tremendous help, and we can help field those recommendations and introductions if you feel appropriate making them. The past 2 weeks, I've been doing solocast, sharing about Lila Life's vision, sharing about how to craft a vision, some of the fundamentals that can help you, especially at the early stages. Last week, we were diving into the business model canvas and how to use that tool, and I ran through an example. And today, I just want to share a little bit about the importance of building resilience for your entrepreneurial success. There's a few tools that I love doing at the early stages, and I'm talking about especially early stages of business, but I work with a lot of people during transitions. And so if they're not launching a business, they may be switching a job or starting a family or getting married. And these different transitions, I get to see a lot of similar patterns that people will rub up against in terms of resistance. But what I also love during those times of transition is the invitation to map out your dream week. And this is something, if you're a client of mine, we usually start really early on mapping out, what's that ideal wake up time? What are your existing commitments that you have to account for? And what else? And where can we create space? Where can you create some breathing room? And where can you make room for what of you is emerging? So that's one exercise that at the very early stage, and especially early stage of transitions, like I said, can be really powerful. Uh, Part two to that is part two to that, or another aspect. What I want to talk about is, what does success mean to you? And really, you have that mission, vision, value, purpose, but like what will equal your success? How will you know you achieve the outcomes you wanted to achieve, or forget achieving anything, just even going in that right direction? And so being able to define what success means for you and deconstruct any of those messages of maybe your primary caretakers, your parents, loved ones, spouse, whomever in your life, that you have their idea of your success that is maybe too deeply imprinted or speaking louder than your own inner voice, that you can tone that down a little, deconstruct some of that, decondition some of that, and ask yourself, what does success look like for me now? Why do I love transitions? Life transitions are a natural time, like a natural space to do this work. Usually there's some chaotic elements of the transition, but things start to change. So there naturally is forced there to be more room that you can do this discovery work. It's typically not as hard to make room to do that work, but it can be. And so you can do that assessment of, what does success mean for you? How do you know when you're achieving it? At any point in time. But if you're currently in a transition, that's a really fertile time to do it, because you're already forced to like figure some things out anyway. So I just want to say that about what success means to you. And that's really a big part of today's message, using that time management tool as a starting point of, like, if I had a magic wand and create my best day ever or my best week ever, what would that look like? And what's preventing me from doing that? And it's not just doing the dream week and then doing nothing. It's doing the dream week exercise and then making the changes in your life to reflect that dream week or that day. There's obviously different things that can come up, different commitments that can come up. This is maybe not an everyday nailing it perfect time thing, but you can at least start getting an idea of where you want to be headed instead of being at the will of your schedule. This has been profoundly affecting my personal life lately in a positive way. I wanted to wake up at 4 a.m. for years. I had a pretty good streak years ago. I don't know, it feels like very spiritual. It feels very focused. It feels very aligned. I've just been kind of obsessed with this. And finally, I'm doing that. to the point where this morning I woke up at 3:30 with our little dog Luna without an alarm, and we were rocking and rolling, and I have been since. So that's feeling really good, but I had to make a lot of changes. I had to make room for that. I had to work backwards from a new bedtime that looks like 8 p.m. and redo my whole life basically, and also be synced up with my husband and my life partner. So you may be having to take that into consideration as you're making these changes. For the most part, he and I are doing that together. So it's been really nice to sync up that way. And just think about that. Like, think about who else is affected by those changes that you want to make in your dream week. What we're looking for is, where do you have friction and where can you reduce the friction? Where do you have chaos? Where can you reduce the chaos? And what this orienting to say the dream week does is it helps you create boundaries to support you in that. And so there's certain things that are an obvious no, because this is a priority to me to be living into this like experience of well-being. So take that for whatever it's worth as you're crafting your idea of success and how you want to use time, energy, attention, and money as that conduit to that. So, okay, we have to talk about resilience. Your journey as an entrepreneur can grow as big as you can carry. So if you're finding yourself frustrated, say about money or the client load or sales or something, keep that in mind. Where is your resilience? What are you able to hold? Where do you need to build more resilience? Where do you need some support? And I believe this is a critical underpinning of the entrepreneurship journey. If you are trigger nation, everything triggers you, and you can't make a decision, it's going to be really hard, and you are going to feel burnt out, and you will have gotten quote unquote nowhere. I went through this. It was brutal. I was having what I would say is at least 60 days worth of migraines in a year. And it wasn't until I calculated that I was like, this is crazy. I am sick. Like, I'm actually really sick, and I need to really work on this. And so that became a huge life priority. I don't have migraines anymore. And, work looks and feels a lot different for me than at that time. And so that's a story for me of when I didn't have that, and now having to make some radical shifts to support this. I can't talk about resilience right now without talking about two of my favorites. And if you feel like this is a commercial, fine, it is. Neurohacker Collective, my absolute favorite supplement company. I use their Qualia. They have a caffeinated and a non-caffeinated. Feel into what's best for you, but they have proven to grow your gray matter. And not only does it grow, but it stays. So if you take the supplements and then stop the supplements, you will have done some brain regeneration essentially through the use of that supplement. So that's something to look into. I highly recommend. I love it. And that is something that has, in my opinion, helped my capacity to hold more in terms of my resilience overall. The other is Apollo Neuro, my little buzzer wearable. I am happy to report I now have a tan line on my ankle. People think that I'm on house arrest, and I'm just so hooked on this Apollo Neuro. So this is the little wearable that vibrates. You can set your schedule to be from whatever time you wake up to go to bed. It can even buzz you awake and buzz you to bed, but it's doing vagal toning and helping support your nervous system health. And take a listen to Dr. Rabin, who I've been so lucky to have on the show. And I've also had Mr. Schachtenberger on the show for Qualia and the Neurohacker Collective. So you can go back to those episodes and check that out. You can use promo code Lila Life for a discount. I feel like I have to say that. And yeah, let me know what you think. Mr. Schachtenberger, in other terms, James. Thank you, James. We had fun on that conversation too. So go buzz back to those episodes if you want to. All right, that's the resilience. That's my resilience chat there. What I will say in addition to that is, if there's self modalities, things like stretching, walking, writing, breathing, breath work, great hydration, regular movement, sweating, There's so many different modalities, tools, actions that you can take to support your well-being and your nervous system. In addition to that, being in full acceptance of who you are, where you are, embracing all of you, noticing if there's any parts of you that you fractured off, that all of that, it's going to support your overall resilience, overall well-being. Why is that so important? In business, you're solving problems. You're solving a problem, usually through the mechanism of the business, right? And then every day at work, you're solving problems. I just can't handle the irony. I've been really vibing with Alanis Morissette lately. I don't know, I think I got brainwashed in the 90s or something, but just think about, isn't it ironic? Okay, there's the joke. Number two, self-care. What I don't love in entrepreneurship is like, I do X, Y, or Z, and then I work. It's like, you got to find that balance for you. But if your self-care routine is preventing you from working, you may have something else going on. And so in that avoidance is usually some resistance, and you want to break through that as soon as possible, or else again, you can be in that burnout, you can be in that unprofitability, you can be in that the business isn't working, but are you working? So being honest with yourself, you have to know where you are in order to get to where you want to be. This is critical. For actual self-care, like I'll share mine, but it doesn't matter what I do, it matters what you do. And if you do nothing, do something. And if you do something, is it working for you? And if you're going to do more, how can you make that work for you? And are you actually working? That's just like my preamble to that. I am the bedtime and wake up, but that's all set in stone. I highly recommend having a set time to go to bed and a set time that you put your phone away. That's helped me transformationally. No phone in the bedroom ever. We have the alarm go off in the fours and then meditate. 20 minutes, non-negotiable, meditate. This is usually after dry brushing and just like the morning, getting the morning going and a little bit of puppy cuddles. And then after that, getting into some reading and writing and just being mindful of that phone time. Those are some of my self-care practices that have helped me tremendously, including walking. If I do not work out, I walk every day, like meaning I don't lift or do the other stuff. So just creating what that is for you. I could go on and on and on and on. And again, like you could find infinite self-care tips. It's about what works for you and do you do it? And you have all these things that you could do, you may even have time for, you don't have time for, you need to make the time for. Maybe you're good, could that be possible that like your self-care is that you're good and you don't need to do any rigmarole? It's again, what works for you. So figure that out. And it's good to check in and just make sure it's still working. It's never bad some people are a creature of habit, but you might want to do a refresh. Cool. The other biggie, money management. Again, talking about transitions, usually early stage entrepreneurs are going through some transition, whether they're juggling their side hustle with their full-time job, or they have left the full-time job and they're launching something. There's different ways this scenario can play out, but get your money right. I am not going into advanced financial planning right now. I am not a licensed financial advisor. I was, and I saw a lot during my time there, and I experienced a lot. And avoidance is real and can be real for people when it comes to terms with money. So notice if you have any avoidance tendencies. Are you making things worse or better than they are? Are you in an excessive or overconsumption state? These are all great things to have an honest conversation with yourself about the personal finances. This other side of this is the business finances. And you may feel like you have these stories. I'm not good with numbers. I'm overwhelmed by numbers. Pick one thing to start. Maybe it's literally your bank account, business bank account. If you don't have one, maybe it's your business website. Whatever that one thing is that you're going to track to start, and you're going to track regularly, daily, weekly, monthly. Meet yourself where you are and notice whatever money story you have. Like you want to face this head on. You want to look it in the eye and say, I'm not scared of you anymore. Like, I do not allow you to have power over my life in this way, and let yourself heal that part of yourself. It doesn't need to be the story and the drama and the hard time, but the way it's going to change is by you sending some of that time, energy, and attention there and being right with your money. So thinking about all of that in terms of specifically starting that entrepreneurial career, if you're going to dedicate X dollars, a couple hundred to several thousand to whatever allotment you have available to you, hundreds of thousands, maybe you want to fundraise. Usually people do not want to give people money that don't have any traction. And so the pipe dream of like, yeah, I have this great idea and I'm going to get, $1 million check, that's a pretty abnormal like sequence of events. I'm not saying that that can't happen, but there's going to be different things that need to be in order. And so being in that relationship with your money, having some conscious awareness around how it's being spent. As a CEO, you're cutting costs, you're optimizing expenses, you're reducing that where you can, you're making more when and where you can. And that's some of the basic fundamentals of money. And so when you're looking at the conversation, you can do this with personal finances or business finances to like ask yourself what that really is. What does this really represent? All these numbers are representing something. Find ways to tell yourself the stories about numbers so it can really be real and that you've taken the time to understand what that is. I think that's sometimes why it can be so hard is it's like, what does this mean? Well, if you know that meant 10 sales or 1 month's or 1 year's subscription of X tech platform, like every single line item means something. And so when you're saying like, I'm not good with money or money's so overwhelming or I just don't know what to do, it's like, well, you may not be taking the time to look at the number, understand what it is associated with and make sense of that in the context of your business. And it's not like people just all of a sudden wake up and are amazing at that. I'm sure there are some that are, but it's you taking the time to even get that process going that is going to build up your capacity, your confidence, and your capabilities with doing it. So you have to start. You just have to start, and you have to start where you're at, and you have to keep going. And that's the real takeaway here. All right. So that's some of those tips around mindful money specific to early stage entrepreneurs, mapping out what would you want to spend money on in the first 12 months. And if that feels too overwhelming, take it down to the first 3 months or the first month. You want to start understanding how you will allocate funds. And usually there's some expenses. And so what are those startup costs? I'm a huge believer in keeping things as lean as you can always. I really do. I think it helps you simplify your life and makes you do better decision making. It's not so convoluted when you have all these other things going on. So where can you simplify? Where can you just take that next step, understand where the money's going, and consciously direct that money? Zero-based budgeting, it's like if I have $1,000 a month, I'm spending 200 on this, 500 on this, 100 on this, up to 1,000. I just wasn't counting along the way. You're allocating every penny of that monthly spend intentionally. It's easy to just literally spend on whatever, and yes and no, and yes and no. Understand your numbers, be within your numbers, start forecasting. Okay, you know what? In 3 months, we're going to have this hit and then this hit, and then we're able to afford that. When I'm getting asked, do I want to buy this? Do I want to buy this? I'm thinking about how am I allocating our 2024 spend? What quarter would we deploy that capital? Where are we with our numbers to be able to do that or not? Are we hitting those goals? And that process will continue to evolve. So, all right, we got 2 more big bullet points. Again, this is to complement the 5-year vision podcast from a few weeks ago, plus the business model canvas. And these are just some other pitfalls that I see as common and wanted to share these with you. In terms of leveraging feedback loops, I always like to say, if you want to save money and not hire a coach, ask yourself daily or twice a day, what's working, what's not, now what? What is going well? That's like the win. I always start every call off. What's the win? Where are we with the win? Where's the resistance? What's not working? Can we find that friction? And then the now what is like cleaning up whatever that friction, whatever that resistance is. And so that in my mind is the feedback loop. Doing that on a regular basis, you're going to grow from that. You can't help but grow from that. And this is going to give you that continuous growth, continuous learning as you navigate the process. I talked a bit about money and understanding your money, but at these early stages, you can start understanding your own metrics, analytics, milestones. If you're doing product development and your first goal is to get something out to market, right? You have an offer or you have a product, you just want to get that out. You can break that down to different milestones, but then there's other analytics that are going to start to be deployed, like your website. How many visitors do you have? What's converting? Different marketing platforms, what blog posts. And through all these analytics and all these numbers, you're going to start to be able to have a story, tell a story, learn a story from your business and what's happening and how people are engaging with it. And just like those numbers regarding the dollars in your personal and business finances, these analytics and these numbers are also telling a different story, and you get to make sense of those and then say, okay, for the rest of the quarter, we're going to keep it how it is, but going into the next quarter, we're going to change X, Y, and Z. What it can feel like sometimes in business is everything's urgent, everything's important. We're doing this all right now. When there's a real invitation to zoom out, be strategic, deploy help, outsource, and it can feel a little slow sometimes, and it can feel like, oh my gosh, is it going to ever pick up? What's going on? But then there's these gains, and then there's this compounding, and then it's exponential. And so just let yourself be in that process, understand this is part of the journey, and leverage that feedback loop and leverage these insights that come from the actual analytics so that you can start making sense out of what changes, what you want to be putting into place. All right. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope that you at least have one takeaway that you can feel into and implement in your own life. And I challenge you, I don't care if it's 11:59 p.m., see if you can challenge yourself to implement whatever that takeaway is today, and even better right now. And giving yourself a chance to experiment, try different things, see what's working, see what's not, make decisions, make wrong decisions, make right decisions, learn from the decisions, be more educated the next time a similar decision comes, and just understand yourself through this really, 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 truly beautiful process where you have an opportunity, if this is relating to you on the business side, to identify a problem in the world and solve it through your business offering, service, product, etc. So I hope you can see my excitement here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next week on the Lila Life Show. Many blessings to you. And I just want to, through the airwaves, say a special thank you, gratitude moment for all of you listening and being here on the journey. It means a lot. Until next time.